So 5 minutes sound good?
Yeah.
All right.
Quick and dirty. Let's do it.
Okay.
Nice cleansing inhale. Make sure you drop that breath full down in your waist, down in that lower abdomen. Really use the entire lobes of the lungs. They're immense. And there's so much power in our breath and awareness. Fill the lungs and feel your body releasing those feel good chemicals. And then release the breath slow, gently. Feeling the next breath. Inhale, deeper, fuller, easier. And as I mention body part, allow yourself to feel safe and relinquish muscular control over that space. And allow your spirit body, your soul, to fully come into that space. Starting at the toes, the balls of the feet, the arches, and around the top, through your heels and your ankles. Moving up to the shins and calves and feeling that gentle tug at your knees as your entire lower legs to your toes are completely relaxed. Moving up to the thighs, allowing your thighs to melt into the space of your seat. Feeling your hips slightly open as that space completely relaxes. Moving into the pelvis, the seat of the pelvis to just below the belly button, wrapping around the lower back from hip to hip. Allowing that space to fill with your breath and awareness, and spend a couple breaths in this space. This is where we tend to store a lot of our emotional pain and trauma. So really loosen that grit and that stagnant energy, that trauma and that tension that you're holding on to, and dare to feel safe and release. Moving up the waist and around the middle back to the stomach. Release control. Dampen the will. Quiet the ego. Allowing the heart space to expand and come down into that space as you relax all of your abdomen from the lower edge of your rib cage all the way to the bend of your legs. Moving up behind the ribs, behind the breastbone, deep in that chest space is the immense power of compassion in your heart. Breathing into that space, feeling it expand, feeling your shoulders gently wafting away from your ears as your entire torso now is completely relaxed. And your breath has become so easy. Moving up the neck, around the ears and through the jaw, around the mouth. Feeling the power behind our breath as it opens our throat, around the cheekbones and the nose, around the eyes and between the eyebrows and through the forehead, all of this intuitive space. Really allowing your face to soften. Over the scalp and down the back of the head. Feeling your head stacking over your shoulders, your torso over your hips, and your legs all the way to the tips of your toes, completely and fully relaxed. Moving down the shoulders, the triceps and biceps, the elbows, allowing your forearms to rest heavy in your lap. Your wrists, the backs of your hands and your palms, and through every single finger. Feeling that wave of vibration now awakening within you, just below the skin's surface, that gentle undercurrent, that vibration, waves of warmth. And your body now shifts from this immense amount of heaviness into this beautiful, peaceful weightlessness. Allowing the breath to traverse the entire body and feeling your spirit expand fully into that space. This is always the best time to do a quick scan and asking, is there somewhere I just cannot relinquish control? Am I still holding tension? And then send the breath to that space, envelop that space with your breath, and release it with the exhale. And if you want to open that heart more, imagine you have a nose directly in the center of your chest, right in the center of your heart. And allow yourself to draw in that inhale through the heart and beautifully filled with divine light and breath. And imagine with every inhale that light increases from that center point out to your extremities. With every inhale, you become brighter, more full of love. And with every exhale, you remove tension, toxins, trauma from your body, becoming more and more yourself. And with increased compassion also comes increased ability to see everyone as you see yourself. So not only giving compassion and love, but allowing yourself to receive compassion and love.
Okay, it went off a little bit ago, but I didn't want to leave.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. My pleasure.
Welcome to Are We Where Yet with Johnny Awesome and Tori Black.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of the Are We Where Yet podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Studio Y. Studio Y is located here in Yuma, Arizona at 250 South Madison Avenue. It's downtown Yuma, Arizona. You could find more info at studioyyoga.com. And that's Y just the letter, not the actual word. So studioyyoga.com. And they're bringing you 25% off. That's unbelievable. That's total blessing from them. But 25%
Amanda's so
off.
generous. She's such a beautiful soul.
That is very generous. So that's 25% off the membership, 25% off classes, just 25% off if you mention this episode. So that's a great thing. They offer things like hot yoga, which I want to try. Hot yoga. Tori, what do you think?
No, it's
No?
not my thing.
No?
I'm not going to lie.
The
Well-
room gets toasty.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, me and Rigo are going to do it. That's
Lots of
already a
talc,
given.
that's all I'm saying.
Me and Rigo are doing that. But they got, and garden meditation, I saw something like that on their
That
face.
just started, and that was Amanda's brain baby. She asked if I would do that. And so that's in the next door at the historic home, and it's in their gardens. Beautiful space.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that when I saw that this morning. So, yeah, they got garden meditation and a host of other classes. So, thank you, Studio Y, for being our first official sponsor of the Are We Where Yet podcast. So, let's get into it. First of all, I'm Johnny, and over here we got Tori.
What's up, guys?
And our guest today is Sheri Magdaleno. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay.
Good job. Hello.
Cool.
Good morning.
Good morning. And today it's exciting for me because I'll give a little bit background how I met you or how I first saw you was at the Chamber of Commerce. It was a breakfast that they did, and that you got suckered into being like the spokesman or spokeswoman for the
yes.
clinic. Yeah.
did.
And I think it was kind of like we explained later, it was kind of like, well, you know stuff, so you go do it. Right?
Well, Elise just said you're a better people person. And
Which
I'm
is-
definitely
that's
not
for
a
sure.
morning person, but I figured it's once a month. Why not? So that's the Good Morning Yuma that the chamber does.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, being the clinic case manager, I also became, I guess, the PR person.
You were the PR person.
Right.
And you gave a little, what they call soapbox. You gave a little talk.
Exactly.
And you mentioned meditation.
I did.
And I was going through a terrible time in my life. It's dark, horrible time. And I was familiar with the clinic and Elise. And I did acupuncture a few years previous, which acupuncture I enjoyed. It was very relaxing, if anything. It was
It's amazing medicine.
yeah. So I was definitely relaxed, but you just talked about meditation. I'm like, well, I need something. I needed something. I mean, it was very, very dark part of my life. And I said, I'm going to try this. So after I left, I ended up looking online and trying to get a hold of you. And I think I asked a mutual friend for your phone number, and I contacted you, and you said, yes, you do these meditation classes. And it was, I think it's a month long. Was it a month long?
Yeah, I design all my classes to be a series of 4. You know,
Okay.
humans have to do something and repeat it 27 times for it to become a habit, right? So I figure what better than a month if they're doing what I've asked them to do in the week, because we meet once a week, then by the end of the month, they should be good as gold, right?
Well, yeah, that's yeah, excellent concept. So I ended up taking the class, and it was the best thing I've ever done. I have to say, meditation is my medicine.
That's generous. Thank you, John.
It was so even reading your bio, you would call yourself a healer, or you'd be known as a healer. And I think there's different levels to healing.
Right.
And so I would say, without a doubt, you brought healing to my life. I'm being 100% genuine that you brought healing to my life. And however people want to slice that or dice that, it's
Actually, you brought it to yourself. I just helped you remember.
which this is kind of true because meditation is breathing.
And remembering who you are. You connect with yourself in a deeper way than doing anything else. And that's why I love to refer to meditation as the ultimate form of self-love, truly. You're
So-
never loving yourself more than giving yourself that time and that quietness, sitting in that stillness.
Okay, so now that we got that kind of out of the way, and I want to go to demystifying it real quick before the listeners get any deeper and they shut it off because it's like, oh, meditation and, seances, woo-woo, and yeah, exactly. So
This is new agey and,
all those words that I know you've heard, I've heard.
oh, I've heard all the taboos.
So
the things that stifle people and scare them from coming and even trying meditation. I heard it all.
let's demystify it. What is meditation?
Okay, I love the quote. And so it's been attributed to many spiritual masters, but I believe it was Buddha that said it, that prayer is speaking to the divine, but meditation is listening. So truly, it's just sitting in a space and being present. So literally, one conscious breath in and out is meditation. And I love that. So for me, the greatest thing that I teach is mindfulness. One, it's portable. And two, we spend so much of our time rushing to wait everywhere we go, right?
So rushing to wait, you're saying like
We rush to wait everywhere. The checkout line at the
checkout
grocery,
line.
the red lights in traffic, the doctor's office. If you really started adding up how much time you are actually waiting and then spend that time that you're waiting instead of doing this, flipping through your phone with your thumb.
Yeah, getting that dopamine hit because you got a like on
And just
Facebook.
be present, connecting with all the senses and then deep breathing, it'll be life altering. You'll transform your life just by doing that, pumping the gas. So instead of, pumping the gas and like checking out, people love to check out. Even driving, people are checking out.
So when you say check out, like break that down for me.
I love referring to checking out as time travel, right? So spending your mind space in any time other than now is time traveling. So people have a tendency to time travel to the past. That's the I should have, I could have, and constantly berating themselves.
Some regrets or
Right. And so they would have more of a predisposition to be depressed. So if you think about physiologically what that does to the body, you're slowing everything down. So you feel not motivated, everything feels slow, and you're in that space, you're living in that space.
and that'll
You're time traveling.
weaken the immune system.
Exactly, all of that. And then time traveling to the future, this is the person who's driving but already at their destination. This is the person who's constantly like, I'm a go-getter, right? And so it's good to make goals. And that always comes up when I start talking about time traveling to the future. What about goals? Goals are not a bad thing. This is what vision boards are good for. This is what focus wheels are good for. Write it down and release it. You've already put it out into the universe. Let it go.
Let the universe handle it at that point.
That's right. And do not live in that space. Because living in that space, you're forcing your body to be in a space that also doesn't exist. Nothing exists but now. So for you, fortunately or unfortunately, myself, this beautiful lady, and Rigo, us four are the only things that exist right now. So what do you have to worry about? Literally, what do you have to worry about?
And I was the second person you mentioned. I was living in the future constantly. I was the go-getter that had to prove myself. And I lost myself in the future. I completely lost myself in the future, and it affected my family. It affected the people around me. Had a business, affected the people that worked for me, the people that worked with me, the clients that I had, because I was constantly in the future. And I was never be able to be present with them during signing that contract, going over that project, my son and his schoolwork. I was never there. So meditation helped me to learn about or focus on being present with people, because that's all that matters. Right here, like you said, this is it. The four of us in this room doing what we're doing. What do we have to worry about?
Nada.
Nothing. It's just a beautiful space.
Translation, nothing.
There's that, but also break down a little bit the brain waves, what meditation does. Okay, let's start with what meditation is. Breathing, and I'll let you go.
Well, there's thousands of different types of meditation.
Okay.
Thousands, literally. I mean, it's endless, the practice. And that's why I love mindfulness, right? Mindfulness is bringing you into the present moment. Once you have a handle on that, everything else is cake. And hopefully I tickle your consciousness enough that you want to go and find a practice that resonates with you. That's my hope, right? Because when you start connecting with yourself, just through being mindful, you start to know yourself, right? And then you start to remember. And we all come into this life already knowing. and we forget, right? So that remembering, all of us as children, literally every single one of us, had some meditative practice, right, that we used to comfort ourselves. All of us. And so that makes it even more millions, billions types of meditation. Do you understand?
Okay, because
there's
everybody has
Jonathan
their practice.
meditation, there's Veronica meditation, there's
Victoria,
Rita
but yeah.
Victoria, I'm so sorry. And Sheri meditation. You see what I'm saying? And so it's really important to remember who you are in those practices. So even when I teach my sensitive and psychic people, I always say, I'll tell you how I do this thing, but you will remember how you do it.
Wow.
So you can use mine, and then you will start to remember, like, oh, this is how I do this. And you will remember and use your own technique. It's endless.
So it's like unique to the individual.
Exactly. But mindfulness, I mean, bringing yourself into the present moment is, like I said, it's transformative, it's empowering, and that's why that's literally my favorite. And I love teaching everything. I love sharing the knowledge that I have and helping people come into their selves and come into the light. All of that. I love that. That's my purpose. That's my path. And aligning with that is so gratifying. And I am grateful, and it's a beautiful thing.
Okay, so you said there's a bunch of different types. And so the type you taught me was basic mindful meditation.
Exactly.
And so just like, again, to kind of demystify that, what did you teach me? In the very physics sense, you taught me to breathe and count my breath, correct?
Well, how do I teach? So everybody gets something different out of the class.
Okay.
So what is my goal to teach? Just to teach people to be present, stop time traveling, so quieting the mind. So truly, you have to figure out whose voice that is in your head, because that voice is a database. Our mind is a database. So just like a calculator is meant to calculate numbers, our brain is meant to solve human problem, right? So unfortunately, that database doesn't save a whole lot of good stuff. It saves all the negative stuff that happens to us. And this is from the time we're infants. So that voice in your head is not you. You are the infinite, unchanging constant. Anything that is changing is not you.
How can it be?
So even the
Yeah.
body, the mind, all of that, it's not you. You are the observer. So coming to the recognition that that voice is not you, most people wouldn't even allow their friends to talk to them the way that voice talks to them in their head. You know? Oh, what makes you think you can do this? Why do you think that people even want to listen to you, right? What are the things you hear in your head?
Yeah, you don't want to know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's horrific. And so I help people recognize that's not you. And so when they start to recognize that it's not them, then they also start to recognize how much that's happening, that dialogue is happening. So I tell them, I said, this is not going to be overnight. And just like I taught you, it's not going to be overnight. This is a daily practice of recognition and coming into yourself and being present, right? So you can get a whole page of dialogue out sometimes before you recognize that insanity is happening. And you say, oh, that's happening. Be quiet. Right? And then the next time it would be 2 paragraphs, and then maybe 2 lines, and then 2 words, and then eventually you will achieve peace. I don't have dialogue going on in my head, and it's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. Once you realize what it is and to live without it, it's like, wait a minute, I got to get back to that place where this thing isn't constantly in my head putting me down, because it's not you. Like you said, it's not you. And to recognize that it's not you was a huge leap for me, you know?
Now, are we talking about negative dialogue, or are we talking about like in the head? Because I was watching a TED Talk yesterday, which is kind of funny. And it was about coaching the inner voice, right? So I'm just wondering if that's just like...
Intuition is different. Intuition will never berate you.
Got it.
And divine voice and divine intuition always comes as this creative voice. And it feels good. It feels right.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
It will never make you second guess what you're doing. That data makes you second guess everything. Right? That's the voice that stops you, stifles you, right? I'm about to do this. I was asked to do this. And then that voice says, oh, you think you can? Right? So it's wacky, the things that we save. People don't even realize what we save. This could be the teacher in first grade seeing you talk to your desk mate and say, shh, just really rude. And then all of a sudden, the kid, and then they think my voice is not worthy of being heard.
And then that stays
And this is
stuck.
the person that never speaks up for themselves.
Got it.
Because of that incident that happened so long ago.
Right.
And those neurons firing away in their brain, making a connection.
Yep.
Now
Okay. You know, like the little man typing in the head, right?
It just recorded that experience. And it was like, okay, now this is how we're going to act forever.
Yep.
Until you go back in. Dr. Joe Dispenza is after I got into meditation, Dr. Joe Dispenza, he has a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that really helped me dive deeper into meditation, because he's like, no, you actually reprogram the brain and the neurons that are firing together, and you kind of short circuit the bad and you create new ones, these new pathways. And I was an electrician. I understand electricity. So you got these little pieces of electricity flowing through your brain and a new avenue, a new direction. And then you start to live from that direction. You don't live from the pre-programmed, kid in first grade that heard that, shh.
Right.
You start to live from that, I'm okay. Mm-hmm. You start, and affirmations played a big part in it as well. I started to do a lot of affirmations and in the time of meditation and directly leaving meditation, and I start to live from that place. I don't live from the place that I used to live anymore. So we'll get into intuition later, so I definitely want to talk more about that.
I want to touch on affirmations because I think affirmations are great.
Okay.
I like affirmations on a vision board. I like even writing with a dry erase marker on the mirror that you're getting ready with in the morning, writing an affirmation. I don't like the dialogue in the head. That whole idea, it's the same thing. You're creating a voice. So you're changing that voice. So now it's nice. It's a nice voice, but it's still a voice. You want to really quiet that, because then you're walking in a higher level of consciousness where you're constantly connecting with your true existence, not the database, because we are more than this body, of course.
Oh, so you're saying
But
to
we
even
are-
go back to the database. Okay, I see what you're saying.
And hit delete. That's it.
And then you live from this place that's perpetual spirit. It's constant. So like
Pure divine love.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Because even affirmations will still cause that dialogue, but it's also separate, and that feeds the ego. So ego is not only telling you that you're superior, but also that you're inferior, right? So what you're doing by creating a new database is shifting from that inferior thought process to superior thought process. It's still a thought process, and you're still living in that headspace. I say get out of the head.
So then ego can even get clever and be like, no, we're berating you so you can get better.
Ego is super clever.
Right? So it's like, okay, wait a minute. I'm berating you so you can get off your butt and go do something. So it's like tricky.
Right.
You kind of have to navigate through that and like, wait a minute, no. And living from a place of spirit is something that's definitely not talked about. People don't know that that's an option. And then that's like has to do with the intuition, that inner voice that's there.
And it's very interesting, John. I'm glad you said that. It's very interesting that it's not.
Not taught?
Right. Not talked about, not...
Well, because I started to think about that. But my inner voice might say something a little bit different than your inner voice. And how do we deal with that in the material world? It's like, okay, wait a minute. We would like to be told what to do in one sense, because then we don't have to.
Because it's easy.
It's easy. It's an easy way out. But if you listen to that intuition, it's like, wait a minute, it's telling me to go left and go instead of going right. But right, I see this candy over here or whatever. I see this, like it looks like it's the place to be, but why is it telling me to go this way? And then everybody around you is going to be like, well, obviously you're going to go right. Look at what's at the end of the road there.
And that's the ego.
You have
saying,
all
what
this.
are you doing?
Yeah. It's not even just the ego. It's your friends. It's your family that's telling you, well, this is the better path, obviously.
And
You know?
nobody can tell you who you are. That's the thing. We become someone else's version of us. And that's sad. It really, you don't even realize the number of people that are not their own version of them. And so I hope, usually going through my classes, that people realize that and they become more fully their own version of themselves. So it's like, you should not ever be listening to anyone else. Literally. And I raise my kids that way. My kids are teens. And so, yes, I am tethered to this material world and to this earth plane because I am a mother. And that's literally, and I joke saying this is the only thing that's keeping me from being transcended. But truly, I mean, it is.
I joke, but yeah.
I have very ascended friends who told me once, yes, parents, you have one hand on your kids and one hand on God, right? And when your kids are all grown up, then you can hold them with two. So I do live this duality, right? And so that's my struggle. So, and that's also been the greatest lesson for me as well, because also giving them the freedom to be who they are, because it triggers that old database, how you were raised. And so I'm actually severing generations of programming by being a different mother with my kids.
Different than your mother and then her mother. And
Exactly.
then, you know.
And I'm dissolving karma like a badass.
And I believe it. I believe it 100%, you know. And so even for my background in the Christian religion and tradition, there's actually a scripture in the Bible that says you could reach a point where no man needs to teach you. It's right there in the Bible in black and white, but people don't talk about it. It's kind of like, yeah, it's there, but you're never going to get there, so listen to me. You know, like, you got to listen to the pastor, you got to listen to these people, because, yeah, even though it says this here, you're never going to get there. And so I want to bring up a little story about that real quick. Well, meditation is different forms, but the one you taught me was counting breath and kind of going into myself and kind of being okay, sitting still. Like, even sitting still for 5 minutes to me was a huge challenge when I first started. I remember you're like, we're going to do 5 minutes. And it's like, really? It was like tough.
But you know how long you're actually meditating in those classes, right?
I don't remember, no.
You're in meditation for at least 30 minutes when I do those classes.
You know, and then like now that it just goes by, you know, my meditation just goes. But so we kind of, demystified. It's breathing, right? It's a breathing exercise. And so I was talking to my wife, and my wife brought up a little story about when she was in elementary school. There was a program called CHAMPS. And CHAMPS was an extracurricular program, and one of the things they taught was meditation in elementary school. And this was probably in the 80s, late 80s, that they came in and taught these kids meditation. Well, my wife went to a very strict church, and they were like, no, we don't want our kids involved in this meditation. This is Eastern. This is New Age. We're not going to do it. And so my wife became the champion of, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do this meditation. And so they started, her and the different kids that went to that church at that time at this elementary school, started Champs for the Lord. And at Champs for the Lord, instead of meditating at that time, you prayed at that time. And so, you know, and it's very innocent. You know, my wife, she was young. It was elementary school. The people over here said, no, meditation is bad. It's Eastern. It's New Age. We pray. We don't meditate. And so they started this separate entity that gave more weight to prayer. No, I'm all for prayer. I pray every day.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with prayer.
There's nothing wrong with prayer.
It's just some people do an awful lot of talking instead of listening.
Exactly. You know, and so I asked my wife, I was like, hey, can I use this story in the podcast? I wanted permission and to be able to use this and share this. And she said, yeah, that's totally fine. And so yesterday, she texted me and said, hey, I can tell a difference in you if you meditate or not. Like, I don't know about this meditation still because that programming that you said when she was a kid and being young, she still can't get over it.
Right.
And she admits that she can't get over it. She's not ready to meditate or dive into that because there's still something in her that says, but she texted me and said, I can tell the difference if you meditate or not. I just want to let you know that. And I didn't know if that was like a compliment or it was like, you didn't meditate today.
It's a compliment.
You were giving, or you know what I mean? Or like you.
Because then she would try to deter you, right? She would have never told you that.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, was I being a jerk today because I didn't meditate? Because I didn't meditate yesterday, you know? So, and I could tell a huge difference in myself.
Right.
Big difference.
You know what?
Go.
You didn't text me for nothing yesterday, and I thought that was weird.
Yeah. So
Maybe it was.
I was in this place where I was trying to hurry to get everything done again. I became that old, like, okay, I got to get this done. I got so much to do. You know, I got to get the kids to the fair. You know, it was like became a lot. So I didn't have time for my meditation. And so she texted me, hey, I could tell a difference. I don't know about this other thing, but I know a difference in you. And so I was like, wow. So today I was like, first I got up super early, make sure I did my meditation, my process. I did what I had to do. So, okay, sorry, it's a long story, but
That's perfect.
I'm going over my notes for today's podcast. I'm sitting at a coffee shop and I'm writing about my wife's experience, right? So I can have it in my head and then put it into the universe before I do this podcast. I'm doing this at the coffee shop. I look over and there's somebody at the barista, and I say, that looks like Lori. But Lori doesn't live here. She lives in Phoenix. It's like, no, but that really looks like Lori. And so I went to get my phone, and I was going to text my sister. And Lori is Citizen Aim's stepmother, who was my best friend and music and on, but was also my wife's principal at that elementary school. And I'm like, I'm writing a story about that experience, and there is the principal of the school. And then so I'm like, well, maybe it's not her. My sister's not answering. I don't have confirmation. She goes over to her friend and says, hey, watch out for the drink. They're going to say Lori when the drink comes on. I was like, it's Lori. So I look, Lori, like, I'm writing about you right now in my journal, and you arrive. And she's looking at me like I'm a weirdo because I'm a weirdo. But it's like, this is the world I live in.
No, that's divine synchronicity. It's beautiful.
And so I'm like, I said, can I ask you about this, about champs? About this thing that I want to talk about? She said, sure. I said, do you remember this happening? And she remembers it happening. She said, I still teach meditation at, I wrote it down here, what school she teaches at. It's on the next page. At Glendale Community College. She teaches meditation still to these kids at college. When they come in, that's the first thing they do for 5 minutes is meditate. And I said, do you remember the parents not liking it? And said, yeah, they said it was New Age. They said it was Eastern this. And we were okay with that. But it's unfortunate that these kids didn't get to experience this. You know, she kind of just brought up. And one thing she mentioned is, I don't think they wanted the kids to start thinking for themselves.
And that is the point.
That's the point.
So here we talk about religion trying to deter people from meditating. And why then do all of their leaders, priests, right? They all meditate. They all sit in that silence. It's meditation. They're not in dialogue, in prayer. They're in silence. They meditate. So why do they teach then not to meditate? Are they the only ones allowed to access that divine energy and connection? And so you should be questioning that. Reverends and priests and monks, all of them meditate, all of them. And so it cracks me up when I hear New Agey. New Agey means new. I mean,
it literally means new. New means new.
Yes. And Eastern is the oldest
It's where it came from.
practice ever. I mean, this predates Western. And so
here's one thing. I don't mean to interrupt, but Judaism is an Eastern religion.
yes.
And try telling that to any Christian, it's like short circuits. Like, no, Judaism is an Eastern religion.
Right.
So let's go there. It wasn't until like later on in Socrates and it got mixed with the Western vibe, but Judaism is a religion, Judaism.
Right. Well, all religions were actually based on the Upanishads, which is a spiritual text, not a religious text. And so Christianity was newer, but there's a whole span of time where Jesus actually went to India and sat with these ascended masters and these beautiful, beautiful spiritual teachers, then went and took those teachings back. And that's what helped elevate him. So people don't even realize that it's all ancient, and that predates religion. It predates all religion, and religion was created for a completely different reason. It wasn't created to make us more spiritual people and keep us compassionate and loving. It was actually created out of greed and power, and it separates. And so when they say, oh, you have no faith, I heard a Swami say this once, no, I have ultimate faith. So you could say I'm anything, that I'm Jewish, that I'm Buddhist, that I'm Christian.
At one level, it doesn't matter to you.
Right, because it's all the same God.
Because there's only one God. And so
there's one creator. And so at the heart of all religion, and I've read texts from many, I've read the Quran, 2 versions of the Bible, and Buddhist texts. But here's the thing, and the Upanishads. So that's once I accessed the Upanishads, I stopped looking, because that resonated with me and on a deeper level more than anything else. It was just oozing truth, and I knew that. And so I didn't have to search anymore. But all of those other texts, they all have truth. It's all in the interpretation and the delivery.
I believe it. And so that's just would kind of get people going back to like, okay, there's East. So, and there's not New Age, because it's not new. Breathing is as old as time itself. The first person put breath in their lungs. And here's another thing that I noticed with the West, or anything that came out of more of a Christian Orthodox. When you say you go into yourself, Christianity teaches yourself is bad. You were born a sinner, that you are inherently bad, that the heart is inherently bad and wicked. And there's some scriptures that say these things. So then why go into yourself? Don't go into yourself. You're bad. You're not good. Can you break that down a little bit for me? Not from that end, but do you think we're bad?
No. We are all born divine beings, all of us, every single one of us. And we forget, right? But it's so interesting that religion teaches you that, to already make you doubt who you are. And that's where the shift of power is, right? If I tell you that you're nothing, right? Which actually, we are nothing and everything, right? But if I teach you that you're worthless, I guess that's a better word. If I teach you that you're worthless and that you're dark and you're bad, then you will never be here, right? You will never be in an elevated position to try, to fight me or challenge my position of authority, right? So it keeps us passive and docile, easy to control.
Easy to control, and so I don't look at things anymore as like a positive and negative as much as it, like, so I think religion has its place as like the schoolmaster to teach you what it's not like. You know what I mean? It's like to show you.
It's a good foundation.
It's a good foundation. It's to let you know, like, okay, this is what it's like to have your intuition put into a box. And your intuition, that spirit, that thing inside of you is like, I don't like being in a box. I don't like boxes. I don't even like being in the skin, but we're in the skin, so let's do it. Let's play it out.
Right.
So that's kind of how I look at it. And so let's go back a little bit and demystify a little bit further. So when you're meditating, there's different brain waves. Can you break down the different brain waves?
I teach that in the basic one for many different reasons. One, because it gives the brain a task. So if you're counting breaths, you have less of a chance that you're going to be time traveling, right? And 2, it keeps you in a certain brain. So you can, just like a manual switch, you can bring yourself to a certain level of brain waves instantaneously, right? So what I teach, I would I was teaching going deeper and people had a hard time. They would like stumble when they stood up. So I keep you in beta. So the different levels, beta is what we're in right now. We're actively thinking, we're talking, formulating questions and answers.
Analytical.
That's right. That's all active beta brain waves, right? And you're in that all the time. Alpha is a more relaxed state, but you're still alert, right? So you can still converse in alpha, but it's much more relaxed. Slower brain waves, you're slowing your heart rate.
More creative, though.
Right, more creative thought. And that's when you really start connecting with intuition, going deeper, alpha or deeper.
So if you're a musician, if you're an artist, you'd want to be in alpha.
Right. And so when they say you're in the zone, literally you're out of...
So the zone is alpha.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like flow
I mean, if you
state?
want to be like scientific about it, yeah.
And I think we've had that conversation. I am the scientific mystic.
Right.
You know, I love the science. It has to go together for me in order for me to kind of let down my guard a little
Right.
bit.
And so that's the database that you've saved, because if science will back it up, or if I can explain this, it feels way safer. And
Exactly.
It's okay. I will escape judgment because then I have this to back me up, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you got really deep in me right now with that one, you know, because I like, again, coming from the Christian background, which I would still consider myself a Christian because I follow Christ. And to me, following Christ is like dying to self. That's what it means. Mm-hmm. Just putting somebody else before you. And that's what Christ did. So I follow Christ. But so that really helps, because then it's like, no, there's science behind this. Your brain waves, your brain oscillates on different frequencies, and going deeper and deeper meditation.
And then theta, and then delta, and right.
Explain theta a little bit.
So theta is like very deep meditation and sleep even. And so theta is what you're in, like in a sound bath. The vibration of the bowls puts you there record time, but also you can do that with the breath, like how I teach the counting of the breaths. And then delta is unconsciousness, coma, or super deep meditation.
So that's when you're sleeping and dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were like meditating, how the hell does that look? Am I just like,
can you get to
hanging
delta
around?
in
Okay,
meditation?
so this is interesting. I mean, you want me to share, but so that meditation that I did as a child was delta. And so basically it just looks like you're not breathing. And so I asked my son once, because people kept asking, well, when you count the breaths, what are you at? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't count. To me, the breath is like a dance. So I can get myself there fairly fast. And so I told my son, wait 5 minutes and then just time my exhale, right? And so it was 32 seconds at that particular time. And so maybe it's increased sometimes, maybe it's less others. I don't know. I only had him time me because I kept being asked in my classes. But delta is a beautiful state of meditation. And so I can actually hear everything still. It just takes me a little bit to come back. Like when my son's there, Mom, Mom, Mom. And then you hear my daughter saying, Mom's meditating.
That'll bring you back, huh? That'll get you there. You're like, oh yeah, I got kids. I got kids.
Yeah, that's right. I asked a Swami once, I said, so how much meditation would actually be considered neglect?
That's a good question.
And he looked at me, I said, no, I do crave it. And so I meditate at least 3 times a day. So when I say that I'm highly meditated, I'm not kidding. And I do crave it, but I don't spend as much time there as I would like.
So when you say crave it, so what I've in my readings for what I studied is that it kind of taps you into your internal pharmacy. It releases. So when you're saying you crave it, because it's like, okay, the cortisol levels go down, which cortisol is horrible for you. It's the stress hormone. That goes down. And what gets released? In
all
homeostasis.
The endorphins. I mean, you got your oxytocin, your serotonin, all those feel-good chemicals that we make ourselves.
We make it ourselves.
That our human body makes.
So it's like you're going to your own pharmacist that lives within you.
Well, what it actually does scientifically, Jonathan.
Thank you. There we go.
Research.
One conscious breath, that deep breath, is actually like a light switch for the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay. And so that normally only happens in deep sleep. And if you're someone who's constantly running on high cortisol levels, you don't ever get that deep level of sleep, right? So meditating would really be imperative for someone to start to stabilize even their hormone levels. But what happens is that that breath actually triggers the parasympathetic nervous system to turn on, right? So this is the healing response of the body. This is the repair response of the body, the regeneration response of the body, digestion, all of that. The immune response of the body, all of that, that's a light switch for that. So that's why even if you sat here right now
One breath.
and just took one deep breath, man, that feels good.
It does. It feels good. And that's the... So it releases this. It puts you in, what'd you say? What's the technical?
It triggers the
It triggers-
parasympathetic nervous system. So when you're stressed, you're in the sympathetic nervous system. That's when the heart rate is up.
Your blood pressure.
And basically it does. It stops all bodily processes. So when I used to teach at the clinic, because this is what I did, I was in my past life as a Western medicine practitioner, it's all scientific minded. So I would have to explain these things. And I said, so imagine the gazelle, right? And so you see the cat, the wild cat chasing the gazelle. What's the first thing he does? Releases his bowels. All bodily processes shut down. So if you're constantly in this high level of cortisol, stressed out constantly, even digestion shuts down. So everything.
So that's why
and that's why the body feels so awful. And then you have this whole group of core muscles that involuntarily contract, which literally stifles deep breathing. So that's why you're here, shallow breathing on the chest. So studies have already proved that most people, by the time they reach age 40, lose 10% of their lungs capacity because they never deep breathe.
Wow.
And so think about how you are when you're shallow breathing, right? The shoulders are moving because you're really struggling to get enough oxygen. And then that causes all that neck and upper back fatigue. So your body constantly aches. And then the adrenal glands, which are like little hats on the kidneys, are constantly pumping out. So it fatigues the kidneys and the low back. So then you have all that lower back, like extreme pain in the low back. So it just taxes the body in a way that people don't even realize.
So you're saying they don't realize it, and then they go to a doctor. What happens when they go to a doctor and they say, I got arthritis,
What's the matter, John? You can't sleep? You want some Ambien?
Yeah, there you go.
It's all scripts.
It's all scripts. So instead of them saying, well, hey, you got a pharmacy that's inside of you, they're like, I'm going to write you a prescription.
It's really not their fault. I mean, that's their education process. So they actually think they're doing you a favor.
And you were a nurse, right?
More than 2 decades.
Yeah. So like, I'm not demonizing them, but it's just what they were taught.
Right.
It was taught. So like, okay, we're going to write you a prescription, which before I met you, I was wrote a prescription for
painkillers, probably sedative.
I had Wellbutrin, Xanax, all these different things. I tried. At one point, I even had a medical marijuana card, and I didn't like it. My body was like, you get this kind of like yuck.
Well, you're pouring toxins into your body. And
so I was like, I can't do this, And I even thought like, go natural with medical marijuana. And it's like, no, I can't do it. I don't like it. And then meditation. What? I can breathe and I can feel great. I remember that when I went deep into meditation the first time, I was at the river and it felt like God put like a warm blanket over me and just like, it's going to be okay. And I went like it was so deep and just so like, oh, everything's going to be okay. And it was.
Well, the universe does celebrate. You raise your level of consciousness, and it's almost like that Cinderella effect. Animals are attracted to you, everything. You get swaddled in that divine energy. It's beautiful.
And then you're really one. And one of the benefits I've read about meditation is you become a more compassionate person. Which to me, it's like those drugs that released inside of your body, the serotonin, oxytocin, help make you a more compassionate person. If I see somebody that's always stressed out, it's like, oh yeah, cortisol and dopamine, that's what you're on. You're on cortisol and dopamine, and they have no time for compassion. They don't have time. I'm not going to say
And
where.
high levels of Monster drinks and
Oh, that was me a couple of years ago, man. Oh,
That was you?
Rockstar like every day.
Yeah.
It was
So how'd you
terrible.
feel? Like you start your day
Like
with
if I try to drink Rockstar now, it's like no, I can't do it.
your body's telling you
Like
no.
my body's like, no, don't do that.
But back then, you needed the Rockstar
To
probably
wake
because
up.
the adrenal gland is probably
well, you crave that instant energy because your body's not producing it.
so the adrenal.
And so
gland,
that's why we eat like crap when we're stressed out and
Oh.
drink crappy things and
So, but the adrenal gland, what does that do?
that's what pumps out the cortisol. But unfortunately, with high cortisol levels, you also have erratic insulin levels, higher estrogen levels because it lowers your progesterone. So yeah, it makes you you're like on overdrive, and it's not a,
And then you need the Rockstar the next day and the next day to be able to just do what you're supposed to do as a normal human being.
right.
And these companies are making good money on keeping you at this state.
Right.
The doctors, and they're just doing what they're doing. They're providing a service for people that don't know, hey, you can go by yourself.
Well, it's less work, right? If you can go get a script or sit down and quiet your mind. That's why I love mindfulness, because I tell people, look, don't ever tell me you don't have time to meditate. When was the last time you went to Walmart? How long did you wait in line? Don't tell me you don't have time.
And I actually, when you taught that in class, and I would do that when I'm in line.
And so if you start out like that, it will progress to wanting to sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, because you'll say, this makes me feel good.
It feels,
Whoa, this is even better just to not be in a checkout line, but to sit. You see what I'm saying?
it feels great. Like I can have 30 minutes go by in meditation. Like I just want to be here. I don't want to leave.
Right.
I want to stay in this place. And then, but after that, it's like you have residual effects of being in that place. The rest of your day is just like, and along with that, like I said, the more mystical side of things with these things that continually happen for me, like my wife's principal showing up at the coffee shop while I'm writing about her in my journal makes it even more like I'm living in a dream world.
No, and those are the rewards. The synchronicities are the rewards.
Synchronicity.
Because you're actually paying attention to it, and then you have that awareness of it. And then you say, I see you. Thank you. And then it will happen more.
I wrote in my journal today, and it was like, when I don't meditate, it's not like these things don't happen. They happen, but I'm just not aware that they happen.
Right.
But I meditated today. I was like more of an awareness, like, whoa, there's Lori right there. And here's my journal right in front of me that I'm writing about what happened at her school. It's just like, wow. And talk a little bit about, people are kind of pre-programmed to think this is a evil, maybe a new age. And so I talked to my mom about these things, about like these things that continue to happen in my life, these synchronicities. It's like I live in a dream world. I try to tell other people and they look at me like I'm crazy, but I'll talk to my mom and my mom would be like, yeah, you get that from me. That happened to me my whole life. That's my mom resonates with it. But then when I talk to her about
That's huge. That's like one step below an apology. You see that, right?
What do you mean?
That's without her actually saying, I'm sorry, I did this to you. She's saying, you get that from me. So there's the recognition. The next to happen is, sorry.
But so the other thing is like, but she's stuck in this like religious mode that says, this is all evil though.
But that's the beginning of her awareness.
It's like, wow, Mom, like you could live in this place. Like this not evil. There's no evil about it. Like God made you perfect. So that thing that you have, you're supposed to use and know how to, navigate through this world with it. But it's like, no, I can't. That's the Bible says. Well, no. You're misreading that. That's not what it's talking about, So anyway, I just had to go into that a little bit because that's the definite place that comes from even my mom talking to her. So it's like, there it is. So the different brain waves. So it's scientific. There's a scientific method to it, or a way to study it. The brain and the different levels that you could take yourself into. So that kind of demystifies it for everybody out there listening that thinks it's just woo-woo. And
But I have a question, though. How hard is it to get to those deeper levels, or how long does it take?
I've been doing it since I was a child, so I would be a bad example, but I would say if you're meditating every day, it would be fairly easy for you because you're already practicing, have a steady practice. And so, like I said, you can also do that with the breath and get yourself there. And so at first you may be actually falling asleep because your body needs rest. And so a lot of people, when they start those deeper meditative practices, they're like, I fall asleep every time. Yeah, well, you will, because your body's not used to being that relaxed. So you probably will fall asleep. And then it'll start to be a space where you're actually energized. And then in having that relaxation and energetic wakefulness, I guess you can say.
And one of the things you taught in the class was like, it's okay if you fall asleep.
It is okay. Allow yourself. Don't ever berate yourself. Even if you're sitting in meditation and all of a sudden you think, oh my gosh, tomorrow I have to cook dinner for 10 people, right? Then, okay, I hear you. And now I'm going to release you. You don't ever beat yourself up for that. It's in the recognition that's the success. So like I said, even if it gets out a whole page of dialogue before you actually recognize that, you still recognized it. It's the same success as someone who only got one word out. Because
it's your success.
Right.
Because it's individual and it's you.
Mm-hmm. And you are gaining control, and that's huge.
And people don't know how huge it is.
Mm-hmm.
The little victories, the 5 minutes, the couple minutes that turned into, where I could do it.
The pumping the gas.
The pumping the gas.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's got to do it. Everyone's got to pump gas. Everyone. So why not use that time to help elevate yourself, help heal your body?
It's hard. I want to check my phone. I want to see if I got a like on Instagram. I'm just saying. So I'm going to be the devil's advocate.
And so all of those behaviors are self-avoidance. And I tell people that straight up.
So unpack that for me. What do you mean, self-avoidance?
Because you are never more yourself than in those quiet moments. And so sometimes it's really uncomfortable to visit those spaces because that's a space of healing and a space of connecting with yourself. And some people loathe themselves to such a great degree that any way to check out is good.
So check out is Facebook, Instagram, whatever, worrying about the day, the calendar. But checking in is the time to meditate. And people don't want to check in because they don't like.
Right.
They're afraid to kind of look in the mirror and see like, oh man, I got egg on my face.
Mm-hmm.
Like I should do something about that.
Right.
So they almost like it's self-deception. Like, well, then I don't have egg on my face because I haven't looked in a mirror. Mm-hmm. Which is like, no, you're just fooling yourself. Mm-hmm. You do have the egg on your face and everybody else can see it. But the fact that you don't want to check in because it's that cave, that dark cave where the dragon lies on the other side, and that you have to face that dragon and you don't want to face it. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, in all the stories on the other side of that dragon, there's the gold. There's everything that you want. There's the peace, the relaxation, everything that you're fighting for is on the other side of that dragon. Mm-hmm. But we don't want to face that dragon. I don't want to see what I look like.
And the ego will talk you out of it tooth and nail, man. They will fight. And so I love using the analogy of the Wizard of Oz, that scene with the Wicked Witch and she has the water thrown on her. And she's like, no, mm-hmm. I'm melting. What a world. That's like the ego in Technicolor.
So break that down a little bit.
So, and that's what creates resistance, right? It's easier to resist and stay where you're at. Change is scary, right? So the ego will say, well, I don't even know why you're doing this. You know what? You're right. And so that happens all the time, Even bringing it into my practice as a healer, I recognize resistance immediately because I start working on the people the night before I have a session with them. And so I feel that. I feel the mm-hmm. resistance. And I'll get texts like, so do you have something maybe next week? And I just tell them, nope.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So, and I know it's resistance. So,
wow.
And then they're like, okay, well, I really, it's going to be hard for me. And they're like trying to talk me into allowing the resistance, and I don't. So either you see me or you don't, but I don't have anything for you.
You are a badass.
So, well, I'm a healer first and foremost. And that's always my thing. I tell them, look, healing is not for the meek.
I've never heard anybody
weak.
say that.
It's work. And so it does create a huge amount of resistance. But once you get past that, and it's just like getting into cold water, right? The feet are good, the legs are good, but when you get to those tender spots, it's a little more intense, right? But once you're in, it's good. You can get the head wet. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
So it's the same way in healing. You're like, okay, we can talk about it. That's safe. I can even schedule with you. That's safe. Oh my God. I allowed this woman to start working on me, and I can feel this energy moving in me, and I can feel myself changing a little bit. And here goes the eagle. I'm melting. Oh, you know what? Can we reschedule? Oh no. We're at the point of no return.
Because the ego doesn't want to die.
So go in chest deep, baby. You'll be fine. I'll see you tomorrow.
The ego wants to live. The ego wants to fight for itself.
The ego wants to remain in control.
And way it was explained to me is, ego, EGO, earth guide only. It's only just to get you through the basics. But there's something level. There's another level. There's something transcendent other than the ego.
And Deepak Chopra actually made it into an acronym too, and I think he calls it edging God out.
Yeah. You put that God or intuition, that universe, that other thing that's available to have in your toolbox to navigate through this life. You kind of, no, it's easier to, like you said, listen to the ego.
Right.
And so you talked about a little bit more about getting in all the way, head deep. When I first met you, we did the mindfulness. I went through that. And then you started doing something else, pranayama.
The pranayama yoga, yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
That's amazing healing work. And that's more than just meditation. It's active meditation, active breathing. And so that's an ancient Eastern technique. And with guide, I use intuition to guide you through the breath work. But that's really intense and powerful healing work. And so what that does is it pulls out that trauma that you tend to store up in your body and all of that stagnant energy that just sits around that you store, right? And it literally pulls it out of the body. So you're your own healer. I'm just holding space. I create this sacred space for you, and I guide you through that so that you have someone there pulling for you too. But it's intense work.
It is intense. So you were, I think you were getting certified in it when we were talking, and I don't know if I was one of the first or second, third. I was somewhere in that range of, and I don't want to say I'm nobody special, but I am special because everybody's special. But I'm saying I'm no different than anybody else. I want to say that, but it did take. I didn't get a chance to let the ego die. Like, everything was stripped from me. I lost everything at one point in my life. Everything that I had, it was just gone. I had a skateboard and I slept on my parents' couch, and that's it. So I really had to go into that cave and slay that dragon. So I'm not like this brave knight, like, I went in there and did it. It was like, either I'm going to do it or I'm going to die. Literally, that's where I was at. But so I tried the pranayama, which I never would have done ever. I never would have even thought about doing it because it's very... puts me at a very vulnerable state,
right?
Where you have to hold that space for me, like you said. Intense. I loved every minute of it, and I remember thinking about when I was during the process of it. I would think about the process of it, and I would be pulled out. I would automatically okay, I'm in my head now, and all the sensation was gone. And I'm like, I don't want to be here. I want to go back into this. So I was like, stop thinking, boom, this energy and this greatness. And then it's like, but how am I going to explain this to somebody? And then boom, out.
And so that's during the work phase. In those first few minutes, the ego is fighting it.
Fights.
This feels so uncomfortable. I don't even know why I'm doing this. Why am I laying flat here doing this breath? It feels weird. It doesn't feel right. And what exactly is happening inside of me at this minute?
Those things go on in your head.
All that dialogue. And then you hit that space where you actually become the breath. And then the mind just goes kind of like those old style TVs, it's all fuzz and you turn it off and it's like
the old
sinks
tube
to
ones.
the center. Yeah. And then you have that little dot. And then, whoa. Yeah. It's amazing.
You're making me want to try it. I'm like, ah.
And you offer that class. So let's just give a plug real quick for that class. Do you still do that?
I do workshops. So that's not really a class.
Oh, not a
it's
class.
Healing work.
Okay.
So I do private sessions, I do couple sessions, and I do workshops. I actually have a whole retreat scheduled for this Saturday upcoming, the 14th, at Painted Rock petroglyph site, where I'm doing a sacred fire, the breath work, and then a sound bath to follow. And that's really intense. I've done the sound baths after, and it keeps your body in that vibrational level. And so it's phenomenal. Yeah. Get to ride that wave.
I
a
want to
little bit
do the
longer.
sound bath.
I've done sound bath at Integratron. Is that
Oh,
called,
yeah.
or-
I love that. The Integratron.
Oh, yeah. That was good, like crazy.
How was it?
I loved it.
So to people like, okay, these things will sound weird, but Tesla, who I love, I know Tori loves Tesla. He said, if you want to understand the universe, you got to look at it as vibrations.
It's all vibration.
It's all vibration.
Well, you
Everything's
think about our
vibrating.
body.
And that's science,
It's
everybody.
mostly, right. So
That's
here's the science for John. Our body is mostly water, right? So 70% water. And our bones are these beautiful crystalline structures. So it readily accepts vibration. And so every religious text, when you read it, what was first? In the beginning, there was the word. That was the
word.
first thing. It wasn't a word. They didn't even speak. It was vibration.
Vibration. Oh, that.
And so that's why sound is so powerful. And I kept being called to add sound. So I started adding sound to my healing sessions, even doing the energy work. And I would just have this intuition to do certain hums or sounds. And I found that I was like, whoa, I could feel the divine, because I'm a conduit, I could feel that energy flowing through at a greater rate. And I'm like, whoa, something's really happening to this. So then I got taught how to do sound healing. And so I was actually using the bowls for healing, not sound baths at first. Sound bath is like anybody can just lay there and chill and enjoy it.
Okay.
Sound healing, I'm actually placing the bowls on you and I'm opening up those blockages. So it's like what the breath work does, but not as intensely, because you're not having to really work. You just kind of lay there. And I'm coaxing all of that energy out using vibration. But that's really innovative science too, because they're working on that, but they're using, of course, technology to do the vibrations, and they're, very triggered vibration into a certain, like a tumor or something like that.
Which works and has some
and
effect.
it does work, and it's very effective. But
they were able
this
to.
is like since the dawn of man. You know what I'm saying? And this existed. So it's not woo-woo. It's not New Age. It's not Eastern. It's from the dawn of man. Like,
and
you cannot disclaim that or, say it's woo-woo. I mean, that's what you are.
And it makes sense to me, because it's like, of course, God created this world, right? If we can all agree on that, then wouldn't He give us all the tools we need?
Exactly.
If you could just end it there, like, just think about that. He would give us all the tools we need. We don't need to manufacture another tool. It's here, like the vibration. And when we get the success and we find it in science, it's like, it should be like, well, duh.
And that's
Well,
a
of course.
huge part of why I abandoned the paper, I like to call it. I go paperless, because I had this beautiful piece of paper that said I was smart and that I could tell you things. And I said, you know what, I'm done.
So you're talking about
that's not who I am.
the paper, the certificate,
Right.
with the nursing,
The degrees and all of that. Yep. And I said, forget it. That's not who I am. If you want to describe Sheri by that, that's like describing my physical body by just my wrist.
And how
it's
can
completely unremarkable.
Yeah, how can you sum up Sheri by a piece of paper?
No, we can't do it to Jonathan. We can't do it to Victoria.
To anybody
We
listening.
can't do it to Rigo.
And that's a beautiful place to live the rest of your life out of.
Imagine how freeing that is, because you have people now coming up saying, I got to do this to be this, but let it go.
You don't have to do anything to be, but just be.
It's beautiful.
All right, we're going to end it now. I hope everybody enjoyed this. And just let us know where could we find out more information about the things that you offer?
Well, I have a Facebook page. It's just my name, Sheri Magdaleno.
How do you spell the last name?
Magdaleno. And so I created that page. I'm very low tech. And so I've been told I need a website.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll eventually be getting into that. My son promised to help. So
Cool.
eventually that'll be offered. But my number is 928-315-3615. And I'll answer you when I can. Text if you're scared, or call if you like to actually talk to me. And I don't have a problem meeting someone for coffee first or whatever, so that they can actually see that what I do, I'm legit. Because I know people have that dialogue going on in their head, so they're scared. And I don't have issues doing that, meeting anyone anywhere and just sit down and talk to you, so you can see where to start, what you need. And because some people know they need something, they just don't know what they need.
And then you help guide them and figure that out.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Well, that's awesome. So yeah, give her a call, schedule an appointment. I think that's what the first thing I did was text you. I got your number from somebody, and then all those things that you just described, you were that for me. So I appreciate that
thank you,
on the
Jim.
other side of somebody that's experienced the healing that you helped bring into this world as a conduit of God. So
Thank you.
definitely. And so I want to thank Studio Y for being our very first sponsor.
Yes, and it's a beautiful sacred space. So yes, thank you, Amanda. I love when I started teaching there. It's just
I remember
beautiful space.
the first time I went was for the pranayama, and then I was just like, whoa, this is in Yuma?
Right. It's beautiful space. I mean, the energy is so wonderful in
Oh,
there.
it's great. So I look forward to taking some classes. Me and yoga.
It's
Me
the
and
tiny
Rigo.
little blue French doors on your way to the Garden Cafe. Just take a stop and peek in, because that space is beautiful.
So we're coming for the hot yoga class. So anyway, all right, we're gonna do it. But thank you everybody for listening. Don't forget to rate and review us if you can on iTunes, the Google Play Music app, and whatever app you use to get our podcast. We really appreciate everybody, and thank you. Until next time, see you later.